Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really serious environmental issue, one that literally flows across borders, the arsenic and lead contamination in the Coco River. We've gathered quite a bit of material here. Scientific reports, satellite data, citizen complaints, government statements, trying to piece together what's actually going on.
Yeah, this deep dive is essentially your shortcut to understanding the whole picture. We're talking confirmed pollution, where it seems to be coming from upstream, the worrying effects on the environment and people's health.
And what's being done or maybe not done about it.
Exactly, and the complex efforts to actually address it.
Think of it as peeling back the layers on a really critical issue, right on Thailand's doorstep. So our mission today, let's try to grasp the scale and the challenges of this arsenic pollution in the Kopuk River using the sources we have right here. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute core finding from all these sources. Tests have, in fact, confirmed worrying levels of arsenic and lead contamination.
And it's not just the Kopuk River itself?
No, that's the thing. It's also been detected in the Sai and Mekong rivers near Chiang Rai.
Wow. And these aren't just tiny amounts over the limit, are they? I saw the Chiang Mai Environmental Office test from early May 2025.
Right, those tests. They found arsenic and lead levels significantly above the standard safety levels.
Yeah.
And at multiple spots in Chiang Rai, too.
Like where specifically?
Places like Ban Sai, Ban Hoa Phe, also near the Second Thai-Myanmar Friendship Bridge, and Ban Pa Sang Ngam. It's pretty widespread in that area.
Okay, multiple locations.
Exactly. And crucially, it's not just the water column itself. The sediment, the riverbed, is also contaminated. Sources specifically mention sediment samples from the Kok and Mekong near Mae Ai and Moyang districts.
And there was a specific finding about the sediment.
Yes, a key one. Sediment in the Kok River was found with arsenic levels over 33 milligrams per kilogram. Now, that number is important because it exceeds the standard considered safe for benthic organisms.
Benthic organisms. Those are the creatures living on the river bottom.
Yeah.
Like insects, larvae.
Yeah, precisely. The base of the aquatic food web, essentially. So exceeding that standard is a direct hit to the ecosystem's foundation.
That sounds bad for the river itself. But what about the human health angle? What are the sources telling us about the risks to people?
Well, the sources are pretty consistent and clear on the potential health impacts. We're talking particularly about regular long-term exposure, drinking the water or eating fish from the river over time.
And certain groups are more vulnerable?
Yes, they highlight children, pregnant women, and the elderly. The symptoms linked to long-term arsenic exposure are quite serious. Nervous system problems, numbness, skin issues like thickening or darkening, sometimes called Blackfoot disease, and even heart arrhythmias.
And arsenic is a known carcinogen, right?
Absolutely. It's classified as a severe toxin, a carcinogen, and the really critical part is that it accumulates in the body. It builds up over time, so even relatively low levels, if you're exposed constantly, become a major health concern down the line.
Okay, so confirmed contamination, water and sediment, hitting the ecosystem base, and clear long-term health risk for people. The huge question then is, where is it all coming from? The sources seem to point pretty strongly upstream.
They really do. There's some compelling satellite data from GSTDA, that's Thailand's Space Technology Agency. They look at images from 2017 to 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And they found a really significant increase in land clearing activity up in Myanmar's Shan State, right near the Thai border. And there was a noticeable jump specifically in 2024 and 2025.
Land clearing visible from space.
Yes. And this visual evidence lines up perfectly with reports coming from the ground about what's happening there.
And what are those ground reports describing? What kind of activity?
They specify intensive mining operations, gold mining, and importantly, rare earth mining happening upstream of the Kok and Sai rivers in Shan State.
Illegal mining mentioned too.
Yes, sources mention that much of this is described as illegal mining.
Some reports even name specific groups involved.
That's right. Sources mention ethnic armed groups, like the War Army, being involved in these areas. Yeah. They also note the presence of Chinese workers and companies.
Suggesting China is a major destination for these rare earths.
That's the implication, yes. That China is a major buyer for these minerals being extracted.
So the thinking is these mining practices, maybe less regulated, perhaps illegal ones, are just washing heavy metals and pollutants straight into the rivers.
That seems to be the primary concern based on the sources. And it fits with other observations, like the high turbidity, the cloudiness of the river water, especially coming down from upstream. That suggests a lot of soil disturbance and runoff.
Okay, so we've traced the likely source, at least according to these reports, upstream to mining in Shan State. What does this pollution mean for the actual life in the river and for the communities downstream in Thailand who depend on it?
Well, like we said, the sediment contamination is a direct threat to those benthic organisms living right in it. That's quite clear.
And the fish, I remember the sources mentioning something about fish showing up with red lumps.
Ah, yes, that's a really interesting part, and it's a bit complex according to the reports. Initial tests were done on these fish by Chiang Rai Fisheries.
And what did they find?
They actually found parasites, a specific type called Digenea, and also opportunistic bacteria, Iromonas hydrophila. So, based on those specific findings, their conclusion was that the red lumps themselves weren't directly caused by chemical pollution like arsenic.
Okay, hold on. So the pollution isn't directly causing these lumps. That feels surprising given the context.
It does, initially. But this is where other research mentioned in the sources adds another layer. While the lumps might be from parasites or bacteria, international studies highlighted suggest that arsenic exposure actually weakens the immune systems of fish.
Ah,
It damages their tissues, liver, gills, skin. So the pollution might not cause the lump itself, but it could be making the fish much weaker, much more susceptible to getting those infections in the first place.
okay. So it's like the pollution is opening the door for the parasites and bacteria.
That's the hypothesis suggested by connecting these different pieces of information. It raises this critical question about how different environmental stressors interact. The sources state there's still scientific uncertainty, and more detailed testing is needed, specifically looking for metal accumulation inside the fish tissues to really understand that link.
Got it. So beyond the fish health question mark, how is this impacting people directly, their livelihoods?
Oh, it's having a very clear economic impact, according to the sources. Residents who rely on fishing or farming, using river water for irrigation, they're seeing their incomes drop.
Because people are afraid to buy their products.
Exactly. There's a fear of contamination, so people are hesitant to buy fish caught in the river or produce grown with river water. It doesn't even matter if specific tests on, say, the vegetables come back clean. The fear itself damages the local economy. It creates this climate of uncertainty.
Understandable. Given all this, the pollution, the likely source, the health worries, the economic hit, I imagine people living there must be getting pretty frustrated.
Absolutely. The sources describe significant frustration, especially in Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai provinces. There's a strong feeling that the government's response hasn't been fast enough or decisive enough.
And they're organizing, right? Not just complaining.
Definitely. The sources detail active citizen organizing.
Huh.
There was apparently a key meeting on May 19th, 2025. It brought together a really diverse coalition, monks, local business owners, artists, local politicians, NGOs.
All from areas along the affected rivers.
Yes, along the Kok and Sai rivers. They seem to be taking a very structured approach.
What are they planning to do?
Well, they're organizing a major public event for June 5th, which is World Environment Day. The goal is ambitious. They're apparently aiming for up to 10,000 participants.
Wow, 10,000 people. What's the objective?
Primarily, to put significant pressure on the government to take more concrete and faster action.
And are they only targeting the Thai government?
No, their strategy seems broader. Proposed actions include submitting letters not just to the Thai government, but also, significantly, to the Chinese government recognizing their role as buyers, and also to the War Army and the Myanmar military, the groups mentioned in relation to the upstream activities.
Interesting. And other activities?
Yes, they want to involve students, raise awareness, and they're planning cultural activities too, like the Supchata Mai Nam Kok, which is a traditional ceremony to sort of extend the life or vitality of the river. It highlights the deep cultural connection people have to it.
So what are their core demands for the government specifically?
They're asking for clear goals and, crucially, specific timelines for action. They also want this whole issue elevated, treated not just as a local environmental problem, but as a matter of national security, given the cross-border element. And they plan to take their awareness campaigns national and even international, thinking about ASEAN and the UN.
You mentioned earlier that arsenic accumulates in the body. Did the citizen groups bring that up regarding the testing?
Yes, that's a really important point they raised, according to the sources. They stressed that just hearing that current levels in, say, a water sample or initial urine test are within standards doesn't really address the long-term risk. They're worried about the cumulative effect of chronic exposure over years. They're definitely thinking long-term health.
Okay, so the community is mobilized, they're organized, they have specific demands. How has the Thai government actually responded based on these sources? Are they stepping up?
The sources do indicate that, yes, the government is now actively responding. It seems the confirmed test results and definitely the growing public pressure have spurred action.
What kind of action?
Well, the Prime Minister has reportedly issued urgent orders for a multi-pronged approach. On one hand, focusing on the immediate health impacts for people in Thailand. On the other hand, starting diplomatic efforts.
Diplomacy aimed at the upstream source.
Exactly. Negotiating with neighboring countries to try and get them to improve those mining practices or ideally stop the ones causing the pollution.
Which agencies are involved?
It's a multi-agency effort. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, the Pollution Control Department, DSTA, the Space Agency providing that satellite data, and the Border Affairs Department are all mentioned as being involved.
And what about the testing and monitoring that the citizens were worried about?
The government has ordered increased monitoring frequency. Specifically, from May through September 2025, they're stepping up tests for water, sediment, aquatic life, crucially tap water, agricultural produce, and even human health monitoring through urine samples.
Have there been any results from that yet?
Initial tests on tap water and some urine samples back in April were reported as being within standard levels, but this intensified monitoring period is really just getting underway now. So vigilance continues.
And the diplomatic track, any specifics on how they're engaging Myanmar?
Yes, some specifics are mentioned. The issue is scheduled to be formally discussed at the Regional Border Committee, the RBC meeting with Myanmar, which is planned for June 2025. Also, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is engaging directly talking to the Thai embassy in Myanmar and also inviting folks from the Myanmar embassy here in Thailand for discussions.
Okay, so monitoring and diplomacy. What about actually dealing with the pollution that's already in the river within Thailand's borders? Any plans there?
Yes, mitigation measures are being looked at. There are plans mentioned to dredge a 3-kilometer section of the Kok River in Chiang Rai, specifically to remove that contaminated sediment from the riverbed.
Dredging. Are there other methods being considered?
They're also studying other possibilities like perhaps adjusting water conditions somehow or other techniques for sediment removal. And interestingly, the Department of Primary Industries and Mines is even thinking about offering technical assistance to Myanmar on better, more environmentally friendly mining practices. That's quite a proactive, if perhaps complex, approach.
Right, offering help. Right, so we have this serious confirmed problem, a likely source identified upstream, strong citizen pressure building, and now government action involving monitoring, diplomacy, and studying how to clean up the existing mess. But even with these steps, the sources make it clear there are still major challenges ahead, right?
Oh, absolutely. Big challenges. Probably the most significant hurdle mentioned is the sheer difficulty of negotiating with the mining sources upstream in Myanmar. Given the complex political situation there, the involvement of ethnic armed groups, Thailand's actual leverage might be quite limited. It's a very tricky diplomatic path.
And the monitoring data, is it easy for people to access?
That's another issue raised. While more monitoring is ordered, the sources suggest the data isn't yet easily available or integrated in a way that's useful for the public. So local residents who need to know day to day if the water is safe, they might still struggle to get clear, real-time information.
What about support for the people directly affected? Health checks, economic help for lost income?
That seems to be lagging a bit, according to the sources. Support for affected citizens, both health-wise and economically, is described as being mostly in the early stages, still surveying the extent of the need. There's a call for clearer, more concrete plans for compensation or assistance and faster implementation.
Are there any sort of bigger picture or more novel ideas being floated to deal with this long term?
Yes, NGOs are apparently exploring some interesting proposals. One is to officially designate the Kok and Sai rivers as special protected areas, giving them a higher level of legal protection.
And another idea.
They're also looking into applying something called the extraterritorial obligation principle. Basically, it's a legal concept arguing that countries have a responsibility to prevent environmental damage originating within their borders, even if the damage occurs in another country.
That sounds potentially powerful, but complicated to enforce.
Extremely. It would require a lot of solid scientific evidence proving the link, and frankly, significant political will from all sides.
I also saw mention of a physical barrier, like a dam.
Yes, the idea of building a sediment barrier dam has been discussed. But it's controversial. Experts cited in the sources are debating it. Some worry it might just be a temporary fix, not solving the root cause of the pollution entering the system.
And it could create new problems.
Potentially, yes. Trapping sediment and toxins in one place could create a concentrated problem, or it might have unforeseen effects downstream. The consensus seems to be that any decision like that needs very careful, thorough study first. It's not a simple solution.
This whole situation, the pollution source being external, the complex politics in the neighboring country, the difficulties in monitoring, mitigating, getting cooperation, really shines a light on a fundamental challenge, doesn't it?
It really does.
How does a country like Thailand effectively tackle environmental problems, whether it's this river pollution or, say, the recurring PM 2.5 haze, when the source lies largely outside its borders, especially in places with complex or unstable political situations? It seems like a massive, almost intractable problem sometimes.
It absolutely is. It really forces us to confront how deeply intertwined environmental health is with international relations, regional stability, and the internal politics of neighboring countries. You can't separate them.
So, wrapping this up, what's the takeaway from this deep dive? We've looked into this serious, confirmed issue of arsenic and lead in the Kokok River system. It's clearly a cross-border problem, strongly linked, according to the sources, to mining upstream in Myanmar's Shan state.
Yeah, and we've seen how local communities, feeling the direct impacts on their health and livelihoods, are really pushing hard for action. At the same time, the Thai government has started to respond more monitoring, diplomatic talks are initiated, cleanup options are being studied.
But it's also clear the path forward is incredibly complex. You've got difficult international negotiations, lingering scientific questions about the full impact on the ecosystem, and the challenge of getting timely support to the people actually affected on the ground.
Right. This deep dive really hammers home the point that environmental problems don't care about lines on a map, and they can be deeply tangled up with political realities happening far away.
So here's something to think about, a final thought for you. In a world as connected as ours, how should countries best work together to protect shared resources, like a river, when the source of the pollution is outside their direct control and the political situation in that source country makes cooperation difficult? It's a critical question, far bigger than just this one river.